Can you solve all these biomolecules questions? What are polymers?
Great thinking. Multiple monomers is the right choice.
What are biomolecules?
Nice work. You chose molecules needed for life, and it is correct.
For all the biomolecules.
You're right. Bioelements is the correct answer.
Biomolecules are also known as
Well-reasoned. Macromolecules is the correct choice.
biomolecules are called dash.
Good job. Polymers works well here.
Inorganic biomolecules are dash.
Exactly. Mineral salts and water make sense, and it is right choice.
Building blocks of biomolecules.
Excellent. Monomer is a brilliant choice.
Biomolecules are considered dash.
You chose natural polymers, and it is correct.
Another name for biomolecules is
Good thinking. Macromolecule is the right answer.
Which biomolecule are enzymes?
Perfect. Proteins is the correct choice. The biomolecules made of charnar.
Solid response. Proteins is a valid choice. There are dash major biomolecules.
Right choice. 4 is the best answer.
How do we obtain biomolecules dash?
Strong choice. We eat stuff is the right answer. Biomolecules are produced by what?
Well picked. Living organisms and cells is the correct answer.
Element in all biomolecules, organic.
Great job. Carbon is the accurate answer.
What is the most basic unit of life? Clear logic. Your choice cells is sound and 100% true. What is another name for biomolecules? You got it. Your choice macromolecules is right. Other names for biomolecules include
Excellent choice. Organic molecules and macromolecules is the right answer.
How many major biomolecules are there?
Bravo. 4 is the answer.
Which biomolecules can be deny and runner? Valid point. Nucleic acids is true. Which biomolecule are stored energy?
Nicely done. Lipids is a solid answer.
Which of the following are biomolecules?
Correct. All the above is the right answer.
Below are the 4 biomolecules, except
Nice selection. Lard is the correct and valid answer.
which 2 biomolecules contain nitrogen?
Smart move. Proteins and nucleotides is an accurate answer.
When it comes to biomolecules, form fits. On track. Function is the correct answer. These biomolecules do not mix with water. Correct response.
Lipids is the most accurate answer.
What element is in all 4 biomolecules?
Sharp thinking. Carbon is the right choice.
What biomolecules would you find in wings?
Right again. Proteins and lipids is a valid answer.
Which of these biomolecules is not a lipid?
Well done. Vitamin C is the right choice. Which two biomolecules are used for energy? Smart pick. Lipids and carbohydrates is the correct choice.
Which element is not found in biomolecules?
On track. Silicon is the correct answer. All biomolecules have which three elements? You got it? Your choice: oxygen, hydrogen, carbon is right. Which of the following statements is false? Valid point. Lipids are small molecules is true. Which biomolecules stores long-term energy? Well picked. Lipids is the correct answer.
Glucose is an example of which biomolecules?
Sharp thinking. Carbohydrate is the right choice. Which two biomolecules can supply us energy? Well reasoned. Carbohydrates and lipids is the correct choice. What type of bonds are found in biomolecules? Right choice. Covalent bonds is the best answer. Carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acid. Smart pick. Biomolecules is the correct choice. Why do we study the structure of biomolecules? Nice work. You chose structure determines the function, and it is correct. DNA and RNA are biomolecules in the category of? Good job. Nucleic acids works well here. All biomolecules are organic, which means what? Exactly. Possess carbon makes sense and it is right choice. Building blocks of biomolecules are called dash. Strong choice. Monomers is the right answer. Biomolecules consist mainly of the elements dash. Correct response. Carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen is the most accurate answer. Which two biomolecules provide energy to the body? Perfect. Lipids and carbohydrates is the correct choice.
Which elements are common to all four biomolecules?
Solid response. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen is a valid choice. Which of these biomolecules contains phosphorus? You chose nucleic acids, and it is correct. A polymer is made of many repeating units called. Nicely done. Monomers is a solid answer. Which class of biomolecules includes DE and RNA? Well done. Nucleic acids is the right choice. Which elements are commonly found in biomolecules? Bravo. C carbon, H hydrogen, O oxygen, N nitrogen is the answer. Which biomolecules has the most calories per gram? Clear logic. Your choice lipids is sound and 100% true. Which pair of biomolecules provide energy storage?
Good thinking. Lipids and carbohydrates is the right answer.
Why are biomolecules considered as macromolecules? Excellent. Because they are large is a brilliant choice.
Which elements are found in all four biomolecules?
Great job. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen is the accurate answer. Below are the four major biomolecules except one. Great thinking. Vitamins is the right choice.
Which elements do all of the biomolecules contain?
Nice selection. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen is the correct and valid answer.
Biomolecules are made up of covalently bonded dash.
Smart move. Nonmetals is an accurate answer.
Sugars are members of which class of biomolecules?
Correct. Carbohydrates is the right answer.
What are the elements present in all biomolecules?
Excellent choice. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen is the right answer.
Which two biomolecules never give organisms energy?
You're right. Proteins and nucleic acids is the correct answer. Which of the biomolecules has the elements C-conon? Right again. Proteins is a valid answer. What do we call the building blocks of biomolecules?
Sharp thinking. Monomer is the right choice.
What is the major element found in all biomolecules?
Smart move. Carbon is an accurate answer.
From the picture, which group of biomolecules is it?
Exactly. Carbohydrates make sense and it is right choice. Which atom or element is in almost all biomolecules?
Nice selection. Carbon is the correct and valid answer.
Which two biomolecules are sources of stored energy?
Perfect. Carbohydrates and lipids is the correct choice. Which biomolecules determines the trait of organism? You chose nucleic acid,
And it is correct.
Which biomolecules contains your genetic information?
well done. Nucleic acids is the right choice.
Biomolecules that contain HON, C, and P are called. Excellent choice. Nucleic acids is the right answer. How many types of biomolecules are there in the body? Great job. 4 is the accurate answer.
These biomolecules provide short-term energy storage.
Right choice. Carbohydrates is the best answer. Enzyme fall under the which category of biomolecules? Well picked. Protein is the correct answer. What biomolecules is formed when amino acids combine? Smart pick. Proteins is the correct choice. Which class of biomolecules does an enzyme belong to? Great thinking. Protein is the right choice. Nucleotides build which of the following biomolecules? Solid response. Nucleic acids is a valid choice.
Which biomolecules provide quick energy for the cell?
Well reasoned. Carbohydrates is the correct choice. Which of the following is not an organic biomolecules?
Good thinking. Minerals is the right answer.
These biomolecules have monomers known as amino acids.
Valid point. Proteins is true.
These biomolecules only contain 3 elements C, J, and O.
Good job. Carbohydrates and lipids works well here.
Which biomolecules does not provide us with any energy?
Nicely done. Protein and nucleic acid is a solid answer.
Which of the following biomolecules makes up membranes? You got it. Your choice lipids is right.
Which biomolecules elements are found in a 1-to-1 ratio?
Clear logic. Your choice carbohydrate is sound and 100% true. The biomolecules that provides long-term energy storage.
You're right. Lipids is the correct answer.
The cell membrane is mostly made of what two biomolecules?
Right again. Lipids and proteins is a valid answer.
Which biomolecule's monomer has the backbone of glycerol?
Nice work. You chose lipid, and it is correct.
Which biomolecules catalyze chemical reactions?
On track. Proteins is the correct answer.
Which of the following biomolecules is not a homopolymer?
Strong choice. Peptidoglycan is the right answer.
Which two biomolecules share the ability of storing energy?
Excellent. Carbohydrates and lipids is a brilliant choice.
What is the acronym for the main elements of biomolecules? Correct response. CHNOPS is the most accurate answer.
Which two biomolecules are responsible for energy storage?
Correct. Carbohydrates and lipids is the right answer.
Which biomolecule's monomer is an amino acid?
Bravo! Proteins is the answer.
Which class of biomolecules is used to make cell membranes?
Well reasoned. Lipids is the correct choice.
The first type of biomolecules your body will break down are?
Nicely done. Carbohydrates is a solid answer.
The four most common elements found in biomolecules are dash.
Good thinking. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen is the right answer.
These biomolecules are made from a glycerol and fatty acids.
Correct response. Lipids is the most accurate answer.
Which biomolecules helps to form our membranes in our cells?
Great thinking. Lipids is the right choice.
What biomolecule's function is containing genetic information?
Strong choice. Nucleic acid is the right answer.
Which of the following biomolecules provides the most energy? Correct. Lipids is the right answer.
Why is understanding the structure of biomolecules important?
You got it. Your choice all of the above is right. Monosaccharide are the building blocks of these biomolecules.
Great job. Carbohydrates is the accurate answer.
Which group of biomolecules provide quick energy to organisms?
You chose carbohydrates, and it is correct.
Which of the types of biomolecules folds up into a 3D shape? You're right. Proteins is the correct answer.
This biomolecule's building blocks are called monosaccharides.
Right again. Carbohydrate is a valid answer.
Which class of biomolecules do fats, oils, and waxes belong to?
Exactly. Lipids make sense, and it is right choice. Which biomolecules carries the genetic information for a cell?
Valid point. Nucleic acid is true.
Which group of biomolecules contains glycerol and fatty acids? Perfect. Lipids is the correct choice. Which biomolecules are used for the growth and repair of cells? Excellent choice. Proteins is the right answer.
Which of the following is not a class of biomolecules? Mention.
Well done. Enzymes is the right choice.
Are important molecules for the functioning of living organisms?
Nice selection. Biomolecules is the correct and valid answer.
A mutation in DNA would initially start with which biomolecules?
On track.
Nucleic acids is the correct answer.
Complex biomolecules that store and transmit genetic information.
Well picked. Nucleic acid is the correct answer.
All the carbon compounds obtained from living tissues are called. Solid response. Biomolecules is a valid choice. Which of the following elements are not included in biomolecules?
Bravo. Helium is the answer.
Which biomolecules typically contain both nitrogen and phosphate?
Smart pick. Nucleic acids is the correct choice.
It refers to any molecules that are produced by a living organism.
Excellent. Biomolecules is a brilliant choice. Which biomolecule's monomer is monosaccharide?
Good job. Carbohydrate works well here.
Ring-shaped ends and O's represents what category of biomolecules?
Smart move. Carbohydrates is an accurate answer.
What's the difference between a biomolecules and a macromolecules?
Clear logic. Your choice, absolutely nothing is sound and 100% true. What is the production of organic molecules by organisms known as?
Sharp thinking. Biosynthesis is the right choice.
Which of the following biomolecules will never be an energy source?
Nice work. You chose nucleic acids, and it is correct.
Which of the following biomolecules is also referred to as a sugar?
Right choice. Carbohydrates is the best answer. These biomolecules are made of the monomers called monosaccharides. Excellent. Carbohydrates is a brilliant choice. What element is present in all organic compounds like biomolecules? Excellent choice. Carbon is the right answer.
Biomolecules that contain nitrogen as well as C, H, and O are called.
Well picked. Proteins is the correct answer. Which two biomolecules help to build lean muscle and provide energy?
Bravo. Proteins and carbohydrates is the answer.
What is the mnemonic to remember the major elements in biomolecules? You're right. CHOM is the correct answer.
These biomolecules are important for bone, muscles, nails, and hair.
Well reasoned. Proteins is the correct choice.
Which of the four biomolecules are insoluble in water?
Well done. Lipids is the right choice.
Which biomolecules would include fats, oils, cholesterols, and waxes?
Right again. Lipids is a valid answer.
Which group of biomolecules does the polysaccharide starch belong to?
Good thinking. Carbohydrate is the right answer.
Biomolecules that make up nucleotides and store transfer genetic info.
Smart pick. Nucleic acids is the correct choice.
What is the mnemonic that tells you what the biomolecules are made of?
Right choice. Chun Chun Chomp is the best answer.
Biomolecules that are sources of energy and provide structural support.
On track. Carbohydrates is the correct answer.
Has more calories per gram than any of the other biomolecules. You chose lipid, and it is correct. Which of the following biomolecules are major energy sources for cells?
Great job. Carbohydrates is the accurate answer.
Which of the following class of biomolecules store genetic information?
Nicely done. Nucleic acids is a solid answer. Monosaccharides are the building blocks of which group of biomolecules?
Clear logic. Your choice carbohydrate is sound and 100% true.
Which set of biomolecules is being compared in the diagram to the right?
Smart move. Carbohydrates and lipids is an accurate answer.
The element dash is found in all of the organic compounds.
Perfect. Carbon is the correct choice. In which group of biomolecules do waxes that coat some organisms belongs?
Great thinking. Lipids is the right choice.
Which of the following biomolecules are used to make enzymes and muscles?
Nice selection. Protein is the correct and valid answer.
Biomolecules that help rebuild muscles and make up amino acids and enzymes.
Valid point. Proteins is true. Which of the following biomolecules are the key in the continuity of life? Correct. Nucleic acids is the right answer. Which of the following biomolecules is correctly paired with its function? Solid response. Lipids long-term energy storage is a valid choice.
What element forms the backbone of all biomolecules due to its properties?
Nice work.
You chose carbon, and it is correct.
Which of the following class of biomolecules store large amounts of energy?
Sharp thinking. Lipids is the right choice.
Which biomolecule's monomer is glycerol and fatty acid? Exactly. Lipids make sense and it is right choice.
Which of the following is not included in the main classes of biomolecules?
Strong choice. Phosphates is the right answer.
When the body needs energy, in which order will biomolecules be broken down?
Correct response. Carbohydrates, proteins, fats is the most accurate answer.
Any of numerous substances that are produced by cells and living organisms. Good job. Both A and B works well here.
Biomolecules that considered as the primary building materials of the body.
You got it. Your choice proteins is right.
They are biomolecules that are soluble in organic solvents. Ester-type bond.
You chose lipid, and it is correct. Which two groups of biomolecules are made of only carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen?
Good thinking. Carbohydrates and lipids is the right answer. These two biomolecules both contain only carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms. You got it. Your choice carbs and lipids is right. This class of biomolecules makes up cell membranes and is not water-soluble. Clear logic. Your choice lipids, phospholipids is sound and 100% true.
Which of the following class of biomolecules make up most organic structures?
Bravo! Proteins is the answer. Which of the following is the correct pair of biomolecules and their monomers? Valid point. Protamino acid is true. The function of which biomolecules depend on the sequencing of their monomers? Oh? Smart move. Proteins and nucleic acids is an accurate answer. Which of the following biomolecules typically contains nitrogen and phosphate? Excellent. Nucleic acid is a brilliant choice. Which of the following biomolecules are the main source of energy for the body? Great job. Carbohydrates is the accurate answer.
Which of the following biomolecules are important for growth and repair of cells?
Pick. Proteins is the correct choice.
Which of the biomolecules contain phosphorus most often?
Great thinking. Nucleic acids is the right choice.
All these biomolecules are organic, which means they contain what type of element?
On track. Carbon is the correct answer.
What biomolecules would help a bear withstand months of hibernation without eating?
Strong choice. Lipids is the right answer.
The elements all biomolecules have in common. Well done. Oxygen, carbon, hydrogen is the right choice.
Dash are biomolecules which contain elements other than carbon, hydrogen and oxygen.
Nicely done. Proteins and nucleic acids is a solid answer.
Which of the following class of biomolecules provide short-term energy for the cell?
Nice selection. Carbohydrates is the correct and valid answer.
Which of the following is mismatched based on biomolecules and their building blocks?
Sharp thinking. Nucleic acid disaccharide is the right choice.
Biomolecules that make up cell membranes, waxy coverings for plants, and store energy.
Right again. Lipids is a valid answer.
A sprinter needs quick energy. Which of the following biomolecules would sprinter use?
Right choice. Carbohydrates is the best answer.
What biomolecules' function is long-term energy storage and creating the cell membrane?
Good job. Lipids works well here.
Organic compounds that are largely found in or from living things are often called dash.
Exactly. Biomolecules make sense and it is right choice.
What is one of the two biomolecules that are primarily used as energy sources by cells?
Correct. Carbohydrates and lipids is the right answer.
4 groups of biomolecules found in all living things are all of the following except.
Well reasoned. Glutamine is the correct choice.
Which class of biomolecules include monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides?
Well picked. Carbohydrates is the correct answer.
Which of the biomolecules contain other elements aside from carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen?
Solid response. Nucleic acids, phosphorus is a valid choice.
Which of the following elements is present in nucleic acid but not in other biomolecules?
Excellent choice. Phosphorus is the right answer.
Which group of biomolecules are insoluble in water and are usually used to obtain energy?
Nice work. You chose lipids and it is correct.
Which of the following biomolecules contain only the elements carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen?
You're right. Carbohydrates and lipids is the correct answer.
All different shapes and all different functions represents what category of biomolecules?
Perfect. Proteins is the correct choice.
What elements do all biomolecules have in common?
Correct response. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen is the most accurate answer. Which biomolecule's function is most likely to be affected by the arrangement of monomers?
Excellent choice. Protein is the right answer.
Which biomolecules form the DNA of living things?
You got it. Your choice, nucleic acids, is right.
Which biomolecules play a role in the immune system and in the structure of the cytoskeleton?
Great job. Proteins is the accurate answer. Which group of biomolecules carries and passes on the hereditary information of the organism? Right choice. Nucleic acids is the best answer.
Which biomolecules act as energy storage for the cell and also cushions and insulates organs?
Great thinking. Lipids is the right choice.
Which of the following biomolecules contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus?
Good job. Nucleic acids works well here.
Which biomolecules transport oxygen and other substances and also form part of most organelles?
Exactly. Proteins make sense and it is right choice.
Bonus: using what you have learned from biomolecules. Both carbohydrates and lipids provide dash.
Clear logic. Your choice energy is sound and 100% true.
These molecules are essential for biological processes and come from the foods organisms consume.
Good thinking. Biomolecules is the right answer.
Which biomolecules are necessary in muscle contraction and in the formation of digestive enzymes?
On track. Proteins is the correct answer.
Which group of biomolecules is involved in storing and transmitting genetic material?
Nice work. You chose nucleic acids and it is correct.
Short chains belonging to which class of biomolecules are often referred to as polypeptide chains?
Nice selection. Protein is the correct and valid answer. What is the order your body will use proteins, lipids, and carbs biomolecules for an energy source? Strong choice. Carbs, proteins, lipids is the right answer.
Large molecules that make up cells and help them carry out the processes necessary to maintain life.
Well done. Biomolecules is the right choice.
Which of the following class of biomolecules yield 9 calories per gram? Choose all that apply.
Well reasoned. Lipids is the correct choice.
Which chemical is used to make acid pool to distinguish the biomolecules based on their molecular weight?
Smart move. Trichloroacetic acid is an accurate answer.
Which of the following elements are common to all biomolecules? A carbon, B nitrogen, C hydrogen, D potassium.
Correct response. A and C is the most accurate answer.
Biomolecules that include carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen needed by the body for growth and repair.
Excellent. Proteins is a brilliant choice.
Which among the following biomolecules codes for hereditary traits by controlling the production of protein? Well picked. Nucleic acids is the correct answer.
Which of the following correctly matches the types of biomolecules with the correct type of energy molecules?
Nicely done. Glucose carbohydrate. Nucleic acid is a solid answer.
7 make up cell membranes.
Bravo, lipids is the answer.
What biomolecule's function is repairing and building body's tissues and allows metabolic reactions to take place? You're right. Protein is the correct answer.
What biomolecules do animals like bears and seals use for insulation and for warmth, especially during winter time? Or
Sharp thinking. Lipids is the right choice.
Which biomolecule's monomer is a nucleotide that, when linked together, will store and transmit genetic information?
Smart pick. Nucleic acids is the correct choice.
Transmitting genetic information is the primary function of this class of biomolecules, whose monomer is nucleotides.
Perfect. Nucleic acids is the correct choice.
Which biomolecules provide long-term energy for the cell and also provide materials to build the cell membrane wall?
Valid point. Lipids is true.
Which biomolecule provides the instructions blueprints on how our body makes all other biomolecules, such as proteins?
Right again. Nucleic acids is a valid answer. A supplement claims to help build muscle and provide energy. Which two biomolecules does this supplement claim to have?
You chose protein and carbohydrates, and it is correct.
Polysaccharides is one of the biomolecules. I would like to know which of these are all polysaccharides.
Solid response. Amylose glycogen cellulose is a valid choice.
Fats provide long-term energy storage and insulation to the human body. Fat molecules are a member of which class of biomolecules?
Correct. Lipids is the right answer.
Monomers put together create dash.
Correct response. Polymers is the most accurate answer.
The class of biomolecules shown here.
Nice work. You chose proteins, and it is correct.
which biomolecules make up cell membranes?
Sharp thinking. Lipid is the right choice.
Butter is an example of a dash biomolecules.
Correct. Lipid is the right answer.
Which biomolecules is seen in the image here?
Perfect. Lipids is the correct choice.
The molecules needed for life are called dash.
On track. Biomolecules is the correct answer.
To which group of biomolecules do enzymes belong?
Good thinking. Protein is the right answer.
What elements are common to all three biomolecules so far?
Smart move. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen is an accurate answer. Which biomolecules is helpful for long-term energy storage?
Well done. Lipid is the right choice.
Unknown 3 is most likely which of the following biomolecules?
Exactly. Protein makes sense, and it is right choice.
Which of the 4 biomolecules would you get the most of from this food?
Excellent. Lipids is a brilliant choice.
The diagram to the right best represents which class of biomolecules.
Nicely done. Nucleic acids is a solid answer. Carbohydrates have various roles, such as the one demonstrated in this diagram.
Bravo. Cell-to-cell communication is the answer.
Carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acids, and lipids are all molecules called dash. You chose biomolecules, and it is correct.
Which of the following biomolecules carry your genetic information?
Well reasoned. Nucleic acids is the correct choice.
Which group of biomolecules is important in the composition of the cell membrane? Strong choice. Lipid is the right answer.
Based on this information, what group of biomolecules do the two molecules belong to?
Excellent choice. Proteins is the right answer.
The image shown is a monomer for one of the biomolecules. What is this monomer called?
Well picked. Amino acid is the correct answer.
Which category of biomolecules do enzymes belong to according to the app biology curriculum?
And
Nice selection. Proteins is the correct and valid answer.
When iodine is dropped on a potato, it turns a bluish black. What biomolecules does it contain? Great job. Starch is the accurate answer.
How you will get all these quiz questions in PDF books format?
solid response. Contact Narayan Changda is a valid choice.